Hello, hello, my love. I hope this finds you doing so well. This week, we're going to be revisiting one of my favorite topics to talk about here on the show, and that's the nervous system mixed state of functional freeze. It's the nervous system state that I find that most of us who are living in emotional outsourcing are experiencing. I don't want to say like all the time, but I do want to say all the time because we find ourselves there so often. And I know for me, once I realized that this is what was happening, it really changed my way of thinking about myself, my life, my nervous system, and how I habitually relate to self in the world. Because once I had this framework of understanding functional freeze, it helped me step into so much compassion for myself because it wasn't me under and overreacting, it was my nervous system. And once I was able to understand exactly what was going on, I was able to begin to make real and lasting change. And that's what we're here for, right? To change our lives for the better. So I'm really excited to share with you about functional freeze, about this mixed nervous system state. I go into it in depth in my book, End Emotional Outsourcing, which is available for pre-order now at my website, beatricealbina.com/book. And I cannot wait to share with you all about this. So today we're going to be sharing part 1. Part 2 was originally shared as episode 247, and part 3, I know it's in depth, was episode 248. I'll be linking to all of that in the show notes, so check that out. You can also find them at beatricealbina.com/2, 4, 7, or 248. So thank you for your interest in functional freeze, in ending emotional outsourcing, and living a life you deeply, deeply, deeply enjoy. Let's kick it over to past me. Today, we are going to dive into a topic near and dear to my heart, which is the nervous system state, the mixed state of functional freeze, which I also like to call somatic self-disconnection, where you're disconnected from the bodily experience of being you while being functional or often overfunctional out in the world. This is a topic near and dear to my heart because it is, well, it's what I'm most passionate about, right? It's what I've dedicated my life to, is helping humans, particularly humans socialized as women, to recognize how this state is showing up, when we're in it, why we're in it, and to use tools like somatic experiencing, cognitive behavioral coaching, a whole host of other tools, breathwork, so much more, dance, movement, using all of my many tools to help us to begin to create another pathway, another option, another choice for experiences in our lives when our nervous system says, oh, this is scary. Do that old thing where you totally check out. And we're going to get into a lot of detail about what that checkout looks like in a second. But when the body and the nervous system say that, I know that my clients have options. They have alternatives. After 6 months in Anchored, people know another way to relate to their nervous systems, to their bodies, to their inner children, to themselves. And that's what I'm excited to begin to talk about with you today and in the subsequent episodes about functional freeze, because it's huge. I mean, it is part and parcel of the emotional outsourcing story. So deep. It's also a huge part of my own story. I mean, I was living deep in a functional freeze for pretty much most of my life and only really started coming out of it in the last decade. Well, I mean, in the last 15, 20 years since I started doing somatic practice, really in the last 10 years was I applying that to myself and starting to see my somatic self-disconnection. And then it was really only when I got out of this was the work that supported me in getting out of an emotionally abusive relationship. And it was only in getting out of that and really rebuilding myself in the last 5 to 6 years that I am now able to say, I do not live in functional freeze, right? I live largely in ventral vagal with normal, natural, incredibly human voyages into sympathetic and into dorsal. That's what nervous systems are supposed to do, right? They're supposed to run the gamut of human experience. And when we are able to regulate ourselves, we are able to call ourselves back home to ventral vagal. And I can now do that. And I could not do that for most of my life because I was so stuck in functional freeze. I had no idea what it was, that I was living in it, that it was my norm. And now that I know, now that I get it, now that I recognize it, I see it, I can see it in someone's eyes. right? When the lights are on, but nobody's home. Whew, it is my passion to help folks to live differently when that's what they want to do, because life is so much more better on the other side of somatic self-disconnection. Let me tell you what, everything is better. I can feel all of the feels. I'm not tap dancing for my lovability. I know my worth. I am not scared of conflict the way I was. I am so wildly in love with my partner in this really beautiful, healthy way, based in a profound respect for each other's autonomy, based in mutuality, based in reciprocity. And none of that was possible from functional freeze. I have really beautiful friendships. You know who you are. You know I love you. And it's all thanks to this work. It's thanks to the combo of somatics and thought work. So, I feel like such a lucky bunny, that I found this stuff. Like, how incredibly privileged am I? Lucky, lucky, lucky bunny indeed. All right. So I will also say up front, this is another, I said this a couple weeks ago, but I am shocked that I have not already talked about functional freeze. It is like legit my bread and butter. It's the most thing that most changed my life was realizing this and working with this, but also like in Anchored, my 6-month program, this is what we do, right? Like we focus on our functional freeze and how it's showing up and how it's effing our lives. And we shift it, we change it. We use somatic experiencing. We use sensory motor psychotherapy. We use dance and 5 rhythms and breath work and to see this, to shift this, to move through. It's wild to me that I haven't talked about it on the show. And frankly, what happens is I thought I talked about it. And so I just kept moving. And then, obviously I have a list of all the show topics, and someone DM'd me asking about feeling like they were revved up but shut down at the same time, tired but wired. And I was like, oh, of course I have an episode about that. I probably have 25, and found I have 0. So we are rectifying this problem right now. Okay, so one more little preamble before we dive in is a nerd alert for my deep nervous system nerds. As you're listening and you're like, wait, functional freeze and my term, somatic self-disconnection, this sounds an awful lot like Kathy Kane's faux window of tolerance. And that has a lot of resonance with coupling dynamics, like over and under coupling. But hold on, that also sounds like global high activation, right? Overcoupled to everything. And like when someone's in global high activation and freeze at the same time. So wait, I'm confused. My darling, my tender nerd, you've been reading an awful lot. I know. I've been at the same trainings, reading the same books, and working with the same mentors. These are all lenses on the same kind of thing, right? There's Kathy Kane brings a slightly different texture to it. So does Judith Blackstone. So does Peter Levine. So does Pat we all bring our own slightly different lens on it, and I add to that discourse around this by bringing in emotional outsourcing, which for folks who are new, emotional outsourcing is the umbrella term that I coined to talk about codependent, perfectionist, and people-pleasing thought habits and survival skills. We don't use those words as labels around here. We're doing ourselves dirty when we do. And so I talk about functional freeze and codependency and how one begets the other and keeps the other rocking and rolling. So that's my addition. But yeah, we're all kind of talking about a lot of the same things in slightly different language that resonates for different people in different ways. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. I think we need it. We need all of it so that all of us can learn. Because if you read Pat Ogden and you're like, just read Kathy Kane. Come here and listen to me, Keep learning until it lands in your body, right? And obviously this is a podcast, not just a somatic practice, but listen to my words and listen to your body and how your body reacts and responds and talks to you as you hear me talk. And just be present. Just see what happens. Just get curious. So you can start to move this work from the cognitive sphere, from the mind, into the body. Okay, so let's talk about what functional freeze or somatic self-disconnection is. So it is a state of chronic dysregulation or imbalance between the sympathetic, fight or flight, and parasympathetic, rest and digest branches within the ANS, the autonomic or automatic nervous system. And that nervous system is responsible for regulating bodily functions not under conscious control. Heart rate, thyroid, digestion, reproductive functions, stress, along with having a really important impact on mood, emotion, sensation, feelings. And this is when you hear about polyvagal theory, the work of Dr. Stephen Porges, and of course, the goddess Deb Dana. Polyvagal theory is talking about how the vagus nerve, which has 3 branches, is part and parcel of the autonomic nervous system and is the thing that makes the magic happen. The magic is being a human with feelings and emotions and also digestion and a thyroid. So we've got sympathetic, fight or flight, freak out. We've got parasympathetic. Within that, we have ventral vagal, the safe and social part of the nervous system. And we've also got dorsal shutdown, which is the frozen, checked out, I'm not home. I'm not here. I'm not present in my body. This is the nervous system state of last regard. Last response, you're toast when your body goes into this state. And we're going to get into a lot of detail about what it feels like in just a moment. So, functional freeze is the mixed nervous system state, where your foot is all up on the proverbial nervous system gas. You are all revved up in sympathetic fight or flight. You're full of adrenaline. You're full of norepinephrine. Eventually, you're full of cortisol. You're buzzing. You've got like a majillion shots of espresso of like buzzing anxiety in you about the world, all the people and things. Everything feels maybe a little bit kind of dangerous, right? Because that's what sympathetic is. Sympathetic is I'm in danger and I need to flight or fight. So that's happening. Meanwhile, your self-same nervous system also has a foot firmly on the brakes and is saying, shut this party down. There is no way I can survive this experience. Put this animal into dorsal shutdown, freeze, disconnect. You're in sympathetic about the world and you're in freeze about your inner life, your emotions, your true desires, your inner voice, your wants, your needs, your authenticity. Let's feel into it. Revved up and shut down. Revved up, anxious, worried. What's happening? Shut down to feelings. Thank you very much. Both at the same time. Worried and anxious and stressed about all the things outside you, whether people like you, if they're happy with you, if you're producing enough and well enough, if they're going to reject you and abandon you. Anxious, while shut down to yourself. Shut down to your feelings. I don't need feelings. I'm fine. I don't have feelings. It's okay. If I had a shiny little nickel for every time, especially in my teenage years, I said, I'm fine. I don't have feelings. I'm fine. I don't need feelings. I'm fine. I can laugh now, but man, that sucked. Whew. That's functional freeze. Jacked up about the world, shut down to you. And this dysregulation or imbalance in your nervous system can keep your body reacting as though there is imminent danger when there really just isn't. You're jacked up on freak out hormones in moments that are actually not truly scary or dangerous in any way to grown up you. Moments like when your partner wants to talk, like a loving, kind partner is like, hey, babe, let's talk. And you're like, or didn't mean to make like a full on donkey Eeyore noise. But like, I think that's also the sound that my soul made for like 20 years when someone would be like, Maria Victoria, I need to speak with you. Right? It made that donkey noise. Right? I get all anxious about them and what they were going to say and what was going to happen externally, but my feelings steel trap around them. Yeah? Or this could happen when you need to make a decision and you're worried that someone will be upset with you if you make the wrong call. Or if you need to call a doctor's office and before you've even picked up the phone, you're braced against them being mean or rude or cold. I could go on with examples, but the point is this. You are so disconnected from yourself. You don't even realize or recognize the emotions within you. You couldn't name them if someone really insisted that you do. The fear, worry, frustration, disappointment, anger. Whew. Those are untouchable. They're hidden away because expressing them, feeling them, especially in a family awash with codependent, perfectionist, and people-pleasing habits, that was not safe. That was not smart. And you, my love, are no fool. You're not an idiot. What are you going to have feelings for? So you can get negated, isolated, shut down, treated like crap, told, oh, honey, get over it. You're fine. Or your fall wasn't that bad. You just have a little scrape. Get up. Or the opposite side of the spectrum here. If you fell off the monkey bars and your parent like super hyper overreacted. My God, my ex-mother-in-law was like this. Like someone would get the tiniest scrape. It was as though they had had like a field amputation during the American Civil War, like while biting on a bullet. Like everything was catastrophic, right? And we talk about catastrophizing in episode 134. And so if that's your parent, would you want to say that you had a feeling? Like, I would keep all those feelings very close to the chest, thank you very much. And I think I would actually eventually stop feeling them, right? Because why bother? If you're going to get negated or it's going to lead to a crisis moment, don't be the kid causing the crisis in either direction. That is not a safe and smart decision for a very small animal that is physically, energetically, emotionally, financially, where does the food come from, dependent on their humans. And so what happens? Well, the anxiety, the sympathetic, ends up driving the bus, clouding your vision of your actual true feelings and disconnecting you more and more and more from your somatic or bodily experience of yourself. And so many of us who live this way are so used to this that we're not even conscious of being anxious. Your leg is jittering, you speak and move and walk and get it all done really fast. You think at the speed of light and maybe you bang into walls or corners because you're moving so fast through the world. You're racing through it, trying to get through, trying to push through life as though moving fast would somehow burn up all that anxious energy. But that call's coming from within, and so it's not going to stop till you collapse. Or maybe you're not the jittery sort. Maybe you look steady, still functional, dependable on the outside, but you're buzzing inside. And either way, you're applauded. You're lauded. Oh my God, you get so much done. You're a superwoman. Look at Supermom over here. You're just out there being functional or even highly functional by external capitalist standards, getting advanced degrees, getting married, buying cars and houses and having kids and getting promotions. You're functional and likely over-functioning in the world. And you maybe wouldn't call yourself anxious, or like maybe would, but in a like, but isn't everyone kind of way. So you're not anxious, but your leg jiggles and shakes a whole ton, and you talk pretty darn fast, and your brain is racing a mile a minute, and you get more done in an hour than most people do in a month because you race around your house or your office like a whirling dervish. And wait, sitting down and resting? No. What? Me? No, I'm fine. No, seriously, I'm good. Like, I would rest if I needed to, but I don't need to rest. I'm fine. I mean, let's be honest, I'm always fine. That's the freeze part. Always fine is the freeze part. No, I'm totally cool. I just you all sit down, watch the movie. Does anyone need popcorn drinks? Can I get anything done? I'm actually just going to run the vacuum real quick because this is during the previews or whatever. It's I don't need to watch the trailer. I'm just going to do, but also the dog, she needs to get her hair crimped because who wants a dog with just straight hair, right? So I'm just going to do that real quick. You see where we're going? Or maybe it's just you learning how to adapt to looking like you're chilling. So you're watching TV while Instagram on your phone, but also have the computer open, or maybe working on a spreadsheet while also texting, but maybe knitting too. But you're good. You're totally good. You're fine. You're good. Right? I'm exhausted just talking about how I used to be. So, oh my God, I never rested. I really have only learned how to rest in the last few years. It's really stunning. And in unshocking news, while I was in an abusive situation, I never could rest. I would never sit. I mean, I was constantly criticized for everything always. So sitting, no. But it's really only now that I have found all this somatic safety within myself and have called in a partner who meets me in such a healing, safe way. I'm a champion at resting now. I'm deeply proud of it. And I'm being profoundly earnest. I'm so proud of my capacity to rest as someone who lived in functional freeze and somatic self-disconnection and had really profound codependent, perfectionist, and people-pleasing thought habits for decades. While you're moving through the world at the speed of childhood trauma and codependency-laden upbringing, long repressed at the same time, you and me are wicked shut down to our own inner world. numb to things like feelings, wants, needs, preferences even. You go with the flow so hard you don't even know you're in a river anymore. You can't even tell that your feet are wet. You're just appeasing everyone. And you are so not present in your own life, your own world, your own body. Why would you be? It's never been a smart thing to be in the past. Why start now? And that's the point to focus on. Our nervous system stay revved up and we're just chill and living life, and it's not even being lifey. We stay in that chronic alert and also find ourselves deeply frozen, checked out, not present to ourselves, our emotions, and in many ways the world around us, running from old scripts through a life that we don't hate, but we don't know that we really like. Because to be honest, we aren't present and really in it. The lights are on, but no one is home. And this is functional free. So my nerds, let's pause for Nervous System 101 nerding on what freeze is. It's one of the 3 primary stress responses regulated by the ANS alongside what we've been talking about, fight or flight sympathetic and ventral vagal, the human steady state, safe and social setting. When a human perceives a threat, whether it's physical, emotional, psychological, the ANS will shoot us into fight or flight sympathetic. We will do our best to get away from danger, but should it become clear that we cannot escape, the ANS will activate the freeze response as a last-ditch survival mechanism when death seems imminent. So let's talk for a moment about how freeze feels. And it's this profound lack of presence. You're never actually really where you are when you're in freeze, and your body is. But you aren't. And it feels like being numb, being frozen, stuck. Listen, I am a chatterbox's chatterbox, and in freeze, I have no clue what to say or what I'm feeling or frankly even what's happening. I am so checked out of the world and myself. It's like my entire body is a block of ice, and especially my brains. I can't feel my feels. I've lost connection with true empathy. My brain is in auto drive of danger, 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 danger. But not like the panicky danger, just like danger, danger, danger. It wants to just shut this situation down so I can get out of it, so I can escape to safety. For me, fawn is generally activated when I'm in freeze, and lots about that in episodes 208 and 209. So when freeze gets activated, especially functional freeze, I seek to appease from fawn. And this happened an awful lot in the aforementioned super lousy marriage with a person with major anger control issues. I would go into freeze quickly and often when I made terrible mistakes, like asking them to help clean up after the dinner I would cook. What would generally happen, should I make such a mistake, is that they would start to scream and berate me. I'd find myself completely frozen inside. They were also a lot taller than me and had like 100 pounds on me, so it was scary in several levels. And so I'd be frozen inside, and meanwhile, would feel this like racing, revving energy to make it stop while fawning, right? My language would come from fawn and would sound like, you know what? You're totally right. It was totally my fault for asking you to do the dishes. I know you worked all day. Meanwhile, I had, seen like 20 patients as a primary care provider. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. You're right. You're right. Right? You see in the tones of freeze here. You're right. I'm fine. You're right. I'm fine. Whatever it takes to make the onslaught stop. So that was my experience of functional freeze, right? Just one experience. I want to be very clear here that it doesn't require an intense moment or an abusive or dangerous, scary moment for functional freeze to come to the surface or to be just how we get through. It's often activated by everyday interactions at work, with our parents, with our kids, even with our friends. A similar flavor of freeze can happen when we get called on to give an opinion out of nowhere, when meeting new people and they do that rapid fire personal questions thing. And by the way, I really don't do well with that. Please stop doing that to people. No one likes the Spanish Inquisition. You know what I mean? When you just like meet someone and they're like, okay, where are you from? Are your parents still together? Are they still alive? What do they do for work? What do you do for work? You know what I mean? Like, this functional freeze can also arise in a host of other moments when your particular individual, magical, just for you nervous system says that crosses a line into danger to self based on experiences from your childhood, your ancestral line, another previous challenging time in your nervous system. So your nervous system freezes your inside experience and puts on a brave face, a good girl or good boy face on the outside. You get to work functioning and over-functioning to make sure your tender middle is protected and your reputation at work too. So what does freeze look like? Well, it looks like immobilization. The freeze response is characterized by a temporary state of shutdown, reducing unnecessary movements and conserving energy. Muscles can become tense as we brace for impact, which is a super challenging, stuck feeling in the body. It's feeling like we can't move our limbs, can't get up from a chair, definitely can't talk or defend ourselves. We lose access to our smarts, to our logic, to explaining ourselves. I often felt stuck in the fetal position on the bed, or like I was weighed down in my chair and couldn't stand or move, and my brain and thinking was also immobile. Again, chatterbox that I generally am, I had no access to my words. And my body would go into this stock still kind of energy in an attempt to save my life. And so here's where I want to remind us of our favorite metáfora. T-Rexes can only see you if you're moving. So if you're not moving, you're less likely to be lunch. So if you're worried that you're about to become a T-Rex snack, immobilization is your best friend. Your heart rate and blood pressure are reduced, which makes sense if you think about lion attacks. If you get bit, you won't bleed out as fast. Isn't that wild? It's as if time slows down in freeze, helping you to conserve energy, but also making life feel really surreal. Pain sensation is decreased. Endogenous endorphins and cannabinoids are released into the body in freeze and can temporarily reduce the perception of physical pain. So again, if you're bit by a lion, it won't hurt so much as you try to escape, which is absolutely genius, and also reduces our amount of empathy towards ourselves and others, which can make interpersonal relating while we're in a functional freeze pretty challenging. And finally, heightened sensory awareness. And paradoxically, and this is so fascinating, the freeze response can lead to heightened sensory awareness. We shut down to ourselves while also becoming hyper vigilant externally and have increased perception of our surroundings because fool me once, I'm on high alert to detect any further potential threat that may be coming my way. So, in the context of functional freeze, this freeze response becomes chronic, adaptive to your past and your history, though maybe not your current reality. And I just want to make sure that's clear, right? Something that led you to shut down and go into freeze in the past can get projected onto your current reality. And even if it's not the same thing or really isn't in the ballpark of the same thing, your nervous system can just shut down because it feels a lot safer to just assume something's a lion and figure it out later than to be like, oh, it's probably a tabby cat and then your lunch, right? Makes sense. So functional freeze or somatic self-disconnection can manifest in a host of ways, both physically and psychologically. And when I started piecing these things together and started doing my trainings and learned about it, I was really shocked at how many of my own physical experiences and those of my patients were pretty direct evidence of functional freeze being part of their picture. Again, maybe not the whole picture, but definitely part of it for sure. So on the physical plane, folks in functional freeze often have chronic muscle tension from all that bracing we were just talking about. All that cortisol is exhausting, leading to fatigue and sleep disturbances like feeling tired but wired at night, which also tracks with what's called adrenal fatigue, which is often really just functional freeze. And we talked about that in episode 7. Gastrointestinal problems like IBS, SIBO, chronic heartburn, and to brag, I've had all of them, no longer have any of them on the other side of functional freeze, which is pretty dope. Can lead to allergies and food sensitivities, histamine issues, MCAS, autoimmune issues, chronic pain, and so much more, resulting from prolonged stress and the body's inability to return to ventral vagal, much less to a state of relaxation. When you're in functional freeze, it's like relaxation never matter. Am I right? Common psychological signs of functional freeze include what you would expect: anxiety and depression, along with emotional numbness, reduced capacity for joy or excitement, difficulty forming and maintaining relationships, feeling hyper alert or hyper vigilant but unable to take action to move or change your situation is super common. Dysregulated nervous system function can lead to emotional instability and impaired emotional regulation, and just general flatness, sometimes with bouts of big emotions, like really big, mad, sad, glad, overly excited. It's like if you hold a beach ball under the water for a really, really long time, when you release it, it's going to explode out into the air, and that's what happens in functional freeze. You hold the feels down and stay out of presence to your own lived experience. And when you do finally have a full human feeling, oof, it can be so huge after so long of emotions being frozen inside. Now listen, and this is important to ask, those of us good at masking, particularly us neurodivergent folks who know how to look good on the outside no matter what we can feel on the inside, we can fake it pretty darn well and can appear to have the gamut of human emotions, which might lead us to think that we do, but we're rarely actually feeling our feelings, as discussed in episode 241 and 242, when we're also living in functional freeze. So this is just something to get curious about, just using compassion and curiosity and care for self. Just start to ask yourself, am I really feeling these feelings, or am I putting on a mask that lets others think I'm having the feelings? Am I just thinking my way through the feelings, or am I really feeling them and processing them through my body? Meaning, once I've given them space, have they moved through in a real way? It's a beautiful thing to get curious about, right? Not to pathologize yourself, but just to get curious. Furthermore, functional freeze can show up as perfectionism, endlessly doing but never progressing, feeling wicked challenged around decision-making, see the aforementioned perfectionism, poor listening skills, which is not because you don't care, but because you aren't actually fully in the room. So you might think damn it, people talk and I don't really hear it. What's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. You're just in functional freeze. You aren't present, which can lead you to come across as flaky, unable to follow through or keep commitments, again, because of not there, feeling numb, unmotivated, helpless, hopeless, again, because you're not there, having what appears to be poor memory. And there's some complexity, right? So we understand that with a history of trauma, there's complexity in how memory gets written into the hippocampus. So we're going to hold that as a truth. But in functional freeze, what appears to be poor memory is that we're just not there. We're not present. So of course you can't recall later what you never actually heard in the moment because you weren't actually in the room. And this happened to me all the time, where my ex would be like, well, what exactly did I say? And if I couldn't reproduce their words literally word by word, then I wasn't to be believed. But my brain wouldn't hold on to the words because I was so overwhelmed and slow flooded that I wasn't registering. Functional freeze, right? Nothing wrong with me. This whole functional freeze thing matters to me because I was so gaslit into believing there was something profoundly wrong with me, that I was the identified patient, that it was always my fault, that I needed to do more. Because I was so deep in functional freeze, I believed it, and it kept me in functional freeze. So once I understood this and could really see somatic self-disconnection for what it is, I was able to see the rest of the picture, and I was able to rescue myself and get out of that situation and to reclaim my life. Pretty cool, huh? Functional freeze can show up having a penchant for a buffer. Buffers like alcohol or substance use, TV, scrolling, online shopping, food, drugs, self-help, overthinking, ruminating, feeling stuck in your thoughts and your habits and your behaviors in your situation because, my love, your nervous system is stuck in a lot of ways. You're in freeze, right? And if you're curious, wait, is this buffering? Or is this something helpful for me, this thing I'm doing? Episode 105, Buffering versus Conscious Distraction, is all about it. Beyond all the physiologic experiences we just detailed, we do a lot of stuff that can often be secondary to living in functional freeze. As always, I'm not saying this is a one-to-one thing where if you do X and it's because of Y. I'm just so not into that Instagram diagnosing thing. We are complex animals. What we do is multifactorial, right? Who we are, how we show up. And also, since we're on the subject, if it doth quacketh like a duck, might a duck not it be? So what are some things we do that are super common in functional freeze? Well, we experience stagnation in our careers, staying in a dead-end job or never pursuing our truest passions, We choose the monotony of a stable but soul-sapping job over risking going for our dream career, paralyzed by the fear of stepping out of our comfort zone. We struggle to commit or maintain relationships like Lisa, who sabotaged her romantic prospects whenever intimacy began to develop because she feared vulnerability for very smart childhood reasons. And by the way, everything I'm listing is for an incredibly logical, understandable childhood reason. These habits come from survival skills and are not things to be ashamed of. Not on my watch, okay? We don't beat ourselves up. We say, of course I did. Episodes 113 and 134 are all about of course I did, of course they did. Okay, so let's keep going. We're almost done for today, I promise. Right, struggling to commit or maintain relationships, staying in relationships way too long, that was mine, and can also lead to what the amazing Dr. Jules Netherland, PhD, one of my dearest and bestest friends, what she calls chain-smoking dates or chain-smoking girlfriends. This is an expression of her creation, which speaks to when we start dating someone when the flames of the last relationship are still smoldering in the proverbial ashtray. Like, chronic monogamy or chronic not monogamy, but like going from date to date, relationship to relationship without taking a moment to breathe in the middle. In the midst, we develop a stoic facade to attempt to protect ourselves from emotional pain, reminiscent of Alex, who rarely expressed emotions, even in the face of joy or sadness, leading to isolation, first from themselves and then from the people in their life, as they had a harder and harder time connecting with their stoic, always fine, thank you, friend Alex. Because we are so disconnected from our bodies, our physical health is often ignored. We neglect our bodies. We don't go see our clinicians, often because we don't believe anyone can or will help us, even if we ask for help. There's also some overlap here with rejection sensitivity, which is a big thing in the ADD, ADHD world and other neurodivergent communities, but I often see it in functional freeze, where we fear rejection. And so, I made casual reference to doctor's offices, clinical offices, the front desk or the schedulers being mean or rude or sharp or not gentle or kind or don't remember, like, oh, the person on the other end of this phone is scared for their health, right? I was talking with a client the other day who called to try to make a primary care appointment because she had this chest pain that was really scary. And the woman on the phone was really curt with her and she just hung up crying. And it took her weeks to get back on the phone until the chest pain got really bad, right? So we have a lot of rejection sensitivity. And just like while I'm on a soapbox, if you work front desk at a clinical office, please, please, please be kind. Or move to billing if you can't be kind. And if you are a clinician, please talk to your front desk. A really kind front desk saves lives. I mean it very literally. Okay. We allow fear to dictate our life decisions, like my client Marla, who declined a life-changing opportunity because she feared the unknown and didn't want to move to another city because, well, scary. We default to people-pleasing, constantly seeking external validation and becoming a people-pleaser and to avoid confrontation. As seen in Carolina, who would never say no, even when she was overwhelmed and stretched to the max. She never wanted to be a burden to someone else, so she would take their burden on her own little shoulders. We make an identity out of tolerating repetitive patterns that don't serve us, like staying in healthy or unfulfilling, unenriching relationships, jobs, careers, cities, friendships, because they feel familiar. Or because we want to fix the other person to rescue them, like Lucia, who repeatedly found herself in unsatisfying but kind of good enough relationships because that's what she grew up with and saw in her parents' relationship. People who tolerated each other, lived in the same house but definitely weren't a team, and probably didn't even like each other but stuck with it because they were in it. Struggling to establish and maintain boundaries, leading to feelings of being taken advantage of. Just like Sam, who felt constantly drained by others' demands, but never actually said no, or I'm not available for that, because that would never have felt safe in their childhood. So their nervous system just kept them from setting those adult boundaries. Effing up your own jam preventatively, because you're so used to it happening anyway, is a typical functional freeze move. sabotaging your own success or happiness, as demonstrated by Chris, who always found a way to ruin good opportunities out of deep-seated self-doubt. And come on now, who hasn't done this one? And finally, continuing to live in emotional outsourcing, codependent, perfectionist, and people-pleasing habits, and to have a relationship with self and others based in a deep belief that you are not inherently worthy of love, thus needing others to prove it to you all the time. Which, let's be frank, is most of us listening, because functional freeze and emotional outsourcing go hand in hand. Whew, okay. That was a lot. Let's take a collective breath. A nice deep breath in. Long, slow out. Remember, it's the slow out that calms the nervous system. The breath in is cute. It's the out that lets your body know you're not being chased by a lion, right? Anything that makes you pause reminds you you're not currently being chased by a lion. Remember, when we're talking about the nervous system, we need to remember we're talking about a spectrum of experience. So you can be largely in ventral vagal with just a little sympathetic or a little dorsal. And you can have a little bit of functional freeze in a moment or with a specific person or people at a certain job or whatever, unless in other settings. For example, back in the day, I felt a lot of ventral vagal when I was at the gym or at yoga or with my friends at work, with my patients and my clients, when I was volunteering, walking in Prospect Park or spending time in nature or traveling. And then I'd go home to my emotionally abusive relationship and I would feel my body, my sympathetic activation just rev as I climbed the stairs. I would get anxiouser and anxiouser as I went up. And I would also feel like a steel cage clamped down hard around my heart and my feeling. So I felt all the nervous system states to different extents, in different settings, and that's natural and normal. It's how bodies work. So I want to invite you to hold loving, gentle space for all the parts of you. Next week, we'll be back to talk about how it got this way, how we start to shift out of this nervous system state and back towards ventral vagal. And we're going to do something fun. We're going to look at several examples of folks, real folks from my decade of coaching, anonymized, of course, to help us to really dig into what all of this looks like IRL and what it looks like to live differently. I've gotten quite a few emails and DMs saying that you really like it when I share examples. So here you go. Ask for what you need and bada boom, you can have it. I will also remind you to take a moment, do it right now, to make sure you're subscribed to the show or follow the show so you don't miss the rest of this really important mini-series. It's super vital information for us as we work to overcome our emotional outsourcing and step into greater self-love and joy. Okay, my loves, let's do what we do. Gentle hand on your heart should you feel so moved. And remember, you are safe. You are held. You are loved. And when one of us heals, we help heal the world.